Aloha! Welcome everybody to Tiki Tuesday Talks, second edition. Super excited to have everybody here. We got a really rad session with Alan Katz. We're going to introduce him in a second. We're going to be talking about botanical spirits and Tiki. Just keep in mind you can make some comments on the crowdcast if you're in that. Let me add everybody in right now to say hello. There he is.
Good to see you.
So Alan Katz, top right corner. Steve Casey, bottom right. Aaron Joseph, bottom left. Say hello, guys.
Hello, hello.
Hey, y'all.
Alan, when was that shirt? What year did you buy that shirt?
Now, I'm going to tell you the honest truth, Pete. As you might surmise, you know me reasonably well.
I do, yeah.
I did not buy this shirt. It was given to me by none other than Francesco Lafranconi.
Oh, very nice.
On a trip we took. I've had this shirt for at least 15 years, and you can tell by its freshness that this is about the fourth time that I've worn it, and I love it.
Very good.
I love the shirt.
Thank you for honoring us with the fourth wear on that one.
You bet.
That's special. That's special there. Where are you ringing in from?
I'm in Brooklyn. I'm at home.
Nice.
I've been here for 16 weeks. I can't remember what day it is. I know it's not the weekend yet.
Tuesday. Tiki Tuesday Talks. I do know that.
That's how I know what day it is. Yeah, welcome to my living room.
It's good to be here. But nice setup there.
Thank you.
How's it going, Steve, Aaron? What's up with you guys?
Going great.
Doing well. Doing well.
Glad to hear it. All right, let's give you guys a little background on what's going to be happening here. So, botanical spirits and Tiki.
Woo!
Yeah, very exciting. Botanical spirits would include gin and aquavit most prominently, maybe a little Geneva in concept. A little bit on the agenda. So one is, hello, we just did that. Chat box and questions. You guys can fire up some questions over here within Crowdcast. We'll try and get to those towards the end of this. Brother Cleve spoke for, an extra 30 minutes, so we didn't quite get to those, but hopefully we'll have time for that. There is the option to share the event up there. We encourage you guys to do that as well. Spread the word, get the word out on what we're doing. This is, again, our second one, but super excited to be giving you guys this content, which is usually you have to attend Wildwood, New Jersey for it. So excited for that. Presentation side, 30 to 40 minutes from Alan. We'll get into a cocktail that he will be making, and then 5 questions with the Tiki fam. Sound good?
Sounds great. If we're not getting to the cocktail for 30, 40 minutes, I better get a glass.
You better get a glass. I have some Svol right here. Svol
I do too.
That I poured myself.
I'll take some ice right here.
Ice. There you go. Classy.
I have the tiniest of soul, but I still have some. So
Hey, that counts.
it counts, right?
Mm-hmm. That's actually pre-launch.
It is pre-launch. I like to refer to it as limited edition.
There you go. It is. It's
Ellie.
Mm-hmm. You know me, I'm only limited edition. So,
In other words, completely legal.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't tell this to Alan. That was not sold.
Cheers.
And as I recall, that was airport regulation size too,
Oh,
right?
it is.
We learned that lesson. Alan, one time at a Tiki, we gave out full 750 ml sample bottles, many of which did not make it back to the airport in a bag at all. So we realized we learned a lesson on that one. Lesson learned.
Business first.
All right, so let's give a little background on Mr. Katz here. I'll put you guys in. So, co-founder and distiller of New York Distilling Co. That's a photo from one of our Svol preview launches. Expert on distilled spirits and cocktails, director of the Spirits Education and Mixology for Southern Wine and Spirits in New York, training in New York and around the country on cocktails, history, etc. Renowned for seminars. We're in luck here on America's food and cocktail heritage. Previously hosted the Cocktail Hour for Martha Stewart on Sirius XM. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Mr. Katz,
Great.
To kind of talk us through this.
My pleasure. Well, nice to be with everybody. Hopefully there's a lot of pretty faces and fun faces and reasonably happy faces these days. It's tough times. But I hope this at very least is a good distraction, but hopefully something, if not inspirational, just thought-provoking from a creative standpoint. And that's really where I want to focus my comments and efforts in our conversation today, because that's what's really driven me, not just in the context of talking about botanical spirits and tiki, but really since I was 15, 16 years old. Real briefly, all the other jargon aside that Pete mentioned about me, all of which is true, just means I'm old at this point. I'm most gratified at that picture, and you can't quite tell in the photo that Pete has of me, the still shot, that it's in front of the Svol banner at New York Distilling Company. But I don't look that old in that picture, man. I've aged.
You look good. You look good. You look spry. Pretty hip jeans too. Let's cut into the jeans.
Yeah. COVID is aging all of us. That's for sure.
Wow, that's true.
But the umbrella is really about creativity. I am not a tiki expert. I would even say in the last 2 decades of resurgence of cocktail culture, where a little bit of my personal background, I would say I was just in the right place at the right time. I was looking for that creative outlet, and I didn't specifically know it would be cocktails or distilled spirits. I just happened to live in the East Village on East 5th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue, if you're familiar with that part of New York City in Lower Manhattan. And I lived there for 17 years before and during that nascent period of the cocktail revolution of New York City.
Can you give us some give some time, some years here for everybody to really kind of put some context?
I moved to New York City 92, 93. Were you born? You don't have to tell me how old you are, Pete, because I know it's just
yes, I was born.
You were born. Okay.
Come on, man.
You were in.
I was 5th grade at that time.
5th grade. Okay.
Really into cocktails.
There you go.
In 5th grade in Central New Jersey. It was a huge scene.
That's awesome. I moved to New York. I always knew I wanted to live in New York. When I was 14, maybe even earlier, I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and I would say I was a gentle cocktail fan then, really by influence of my parents, my grandmother in particular, who I adored drinking cocktails with, even when I was 17 and went away to college, and I'd always worked in bars and restaurants and catering gigs just to make a buck or pay the bills.
Now, you know it's not legal. 17 is not a legal drinking age in the United States, right?
That is true, and we never really abode by that. I'll be honest, no one's going to knock on my door out there, but my kids are 7 and 4 as of today, and we don't drink together, but we do taste together on a very regular basis.
Yeah.
Not every day, but they've had Svol, for example, in cocktails.
What they think?
And Dorothy Parker, etc. So it was part of my family upbringing. It was not to drink to obsession. I can still count on fewer than 5 fingers the times I've really been inebriated to forgetfulness or illness. It's not my intention. It's to really be social and have a good time and enjoy someone else's or a group of people's company. But I did have that drinking experience, and so it was.
Sorry, quick interjection. What was like? What are the drinks that your grandmother in particular and your parents really gravitate towards?
Well, my grandmother was just about anything in tonic.
Okay.
Tonic on the side. But she was also. This would have been in the late 70s and through the 80s. She was an aggressive Campari drinker. She was ahead of her time. And
sounds like it.
I was drinking Manhattans with her, with Pikesville rye, which was the namesake of our town, a suburb of Baltimore. 80 proof Pikesville rye. So it was not over the top, even as a 17-year-old, a skinny kid that I was. But it was the social experience most of all.
Got it.
So what was really instilled in me by my parents was seeking out that point of happiness. And for me, it was always creativity, whether it was music or some artistic endeavor. And when I got to New York, as I'd always expected to do, from teenage years on, I didn't have a job. I went and found a job. It took months, by the way. I went and got a job bartending over in the West Village. My first job actually was at a restaurant on the Upper East Side that lasted about 3 shifts. That ended. And then for a hearty decade, maybe more, I had a series of bar and restaurant jobs that were all within walking distance of my apartment in the East Village. And it was fantastic because I could go out afterward, places that are now, even before COVID, were long defunct. The Cedar Tavern on University, 1/5, Fifth Avenue and 8th Street. These were great hangouts, even for a young newcomer to New York City, where you just felt like you were imbued with a specific context of New York City living from a different era. And I assume it's the same for anyone that moves here, but it was great in a very romantic way, almost, in a Truman Capote-ish Breakfast at Tiffany way, where you move to New York City looking for some experience. It never turns out the way you summarily expect it to, but nonetheless, it's exciting and it's invigorating.
It sounds like there's a Sex in the City industry version to be created out of this story here.
There could be, because as I alluded to, I really was in the right place at the right time. And for me, so I moved here 92, 93, skip ahead to the end of 1999. There were the sum total of 3 cocktail bars, in my estimation, in New York City. I'm taking the Rainbow Room out of the equation with all deference, of course, and bowing eternally to Dale DeGroff, of course. But the Rainbow Room, which I actually went to as a kid to celebrate my cousin's grandmother's 80th birthday, and we all came up from Baltimore, and I can recollect it now. I can tell you where I sat in the room and the view of Central Park that we had. But the Rainbow Room was, from my vantage point as a young newcomer to New York City, it was for a different breed of New Yorkers. It was an upper class, business class set where I was starting my adult life here in downtown New York City. And whether by looks or appearance, assumption you may add, I didn't necessarily fit the downtown mold. All the friends that I went to college with all moved to the Upper East Side. And I said, well, if I'm going to stay friends with them, I'll go visit them. But I didn't see much purpose of moving to the Upper East Side, frankly. There wasn't a lot of vibe and excitement there that I thought I was going to find, particularly in food and drink and art and music. So I found a place downtown. And the 3 cocktail bars, can you name them, Pete? By 99, you were in college, maybe. Were you?
Milk and Honey? Are we going Milk and Honey?
Milk and Honey on Eldridge Street.
Pegu?
Pegu is not even a glint in
Audrey's
eye at that point.
Wow.
So Milk and Honey opened New Year's Eve 1999 at 134 Eldridge Street on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, which many people you may be familiar with is now Attaboy, an equally wonderful cocktail bar. And that's gotten, proper recognition, which is great. Sorry there.
Hey.
People are calling in.
It's all good. We're not busy.
Yeah, we're calling in. It's a shipment coming in. But Angel Share, which
I should have known that one. Sasha always talked about it.
COVID, but I hope it does. And then over in the West Village, Chelsea area was Passerby. And Passerby should be known at least by name for all time because the proprietor was Toby Cecchini, now the owner of Long Island Bar on Atlantic Avenue here in Brooklyn, And back in his formative bartending days at the Odeon, was in fact the creator of the original Cosmopolitan. And Toby's one of the great.
Linking back to Sex and the City. It all comes back to Sex and the City. We should have renamed this.
You know, Toby is one of the great bar people of all time. Again, God willing, Long Island Bar comes back after COVID. And if you've never been, anyone that's listening in or watching in has a chance to go there for a great combination of cocktails, service, and food. You know, such a rarity to find really good food at a cocktail bar. Toby has put the whole package together there. But that was it, those 3 cocktail bars. And for my little, I say 2-bedroom, but the bedrooms were about 9 feet by 12 feet. So there were 2 small bedrooms. My sister lived with me for a while, but I could go out after work or days that I had off, and you could hit all 3 places and still walk home under your own power without having to pay for a taxi. And you could just sense that there was something underlying that was going to be part of this gastronomic culture, that if you go back to the early 90s to the late 90s, this was on the verge of the Food Network when they actually had cooking shows. It was, yes, it was entertaining, but they actually cooked on the shows. It wasn't, let's do game shows or run around a grocery store or go to diners.
Supermarket Sweep is a great show. Great show.
I'm not going to curse on your program.
Actually, hold on, Alan. We got Neff has contributed Grace and Dylan Prime here.
Okay. Yes, I do. Absolutely. And Michael should be recognized. Dylan Prime, I love Dylan Prime. But, you know, Dylan Prime was a great steakhouse. And Michael Waterbury, you could also talk in that context, one of the original innovators of dessert cocktails. He had cake teenies, pie teenies, but you had to have a little bit of extra money. And I would go down to Dylan Prime in Tribeca, but you had to have extra money. For me, in my 20s, making coin, you know, in cash, when you still got cash in your tip-out envelope that wasn't exactly getting taxed, those were the days, you know, the breadth of going to spend, you know, 2 $20 bills at Milk and Honey or Angel Share, or even less, frankly, at Passerby, was in my wheelhouse. But Michael, you're absolutely right. I'm going to revise my standard comments to include Michael as well. Thank you. He deserves it.
Sounds good.
So, you know, in that part of, as I was saying, you could just feel that there was this undertow of gastronomic culture that had just not yet been realized or completely explored, but that all of a sudden, again, pre-Pegu, with the complete thought process that Audrey had, that within these 3 bars, there was this gentle revisiting of cocktails of another age, or particularly in Milk and Honey, because if you've never been there, you'll never get to go again.
Right.
Because it's long gone at this point. But you'd go in, and it wasn't just about classic cocktails. There was a simple but creative methodology. There were no menus. It was, what do you feel like tonight? And my standard answer was, I don't know what I feel like tonight. What do you suggest? And then, whether it was with Sasha or someone else that was working at the bar, it was a tiny place. I mean, it sat